Hey YouTube, Joeboy here. So today I want to talk about the Underworld Brokers. So what exactly are we going to talk about when we're talking about the Underworld Brokers? Well, we got to meet them last chapter. The hype is pretty real for a lot of them, but they are mysterious for the most part individually, personally, what their powers are. I don't think that there's any really good shot at guessing what those are. The question I want to address for this video, the discussion I want to have is, we all know that shit is going to go down in the Tea Party, but who are the Underworld Brokers' friends? Which side of the battle will they join? And so guys, I'm not entirely sure where to begin, so we're just going to jump right into this and just wing it. But essentially right now, we get the overall impression that Big Mom and the Underworld Brokers are in some way allies. Now, I wouldn't really classify them as allies, but if the Tea Party gets any way attacked, you would imagine that the Brokers would work with Big Mom. But I do not think that this is absolutely the case. I actually think the last chapter of One Piece actually highlighted the fact that Big Mom is not friends with these people. They are not her allies. They merely do what they must in order to survive, given Big Mom's status as a Yonko. We can see this with the Jigra, or whatever his name was, the organ dealer. When he did not show up to the Tea Party when he was invited, what happened? Well, his family was killed, and then ultimately he got killed. And so I think this is probably true for every single Underworld Broker that is present at the wedding. So they are not coming for any other reason other than if they don't, there would be huge consequences for them. And I do think it's interesting that we sort of learn the tiers of the Underworld, which is that apparently Big Mom and probably other Yonko like Kaido sit at the very top, and the dealers within the Underworld actually are subservient to them and their power. So I think that you can imagine that there is a bit of a business arrangement between Big Mom and the Underworld Brokers. Essentially, Big Mom does certain things for them, most probably. They do certain things for Big Mom, most probably. So they are in an arrangement in that kind of way. But at the very least, we know that Big Mom doesn't really care too much about each individual Underworld Broker. That they individually don't seem to matter to her because she straight up killed Jigra, the organ dealer. And so maybe he was a lower tier and the other ones may be more important, but we sort of get a feeling of dispensability for the Underworld Brokers. And I think that if the Underworld Brokers are literally being threatened by Big Mom, are forced to go out of their way to become subservient to her and her whims, I don't think that they are so keen on protecting her per se. It seems very reasonable to suggest that they are more keen on protecting themselves. And so guys, therein lies the rub. How best would the Underworld Brokers protect themselves and their status and prevent themselves essentially from getting killed by Big Mom? Well, basically they cannot cross Big Mom. While Big Mom is in the power position, they should, at least on the surface, pretend as though Big Mom's life matters to them. Now guys, that's pure speculation and has nothing from the actual story to really substantiate it, but I think it's very reasonable to make that guess. And so let's go back to the question. When it all comes down, when whatever happens at the Tea Party happens, which side will the Underworld Brokers be on? And so I think it is entirely dependent on whether or not Big Mom is winning or she is losing. Given Big Mom's power in the New World and the threats that she has out there, it seems pretty ridiculous to try and make a move on her when it's very clear that you will lose. But I've made this speculation before and I'm going to bring it up again here. I think that very soon within the Tea Party, Big Mom may be in a disadvantageous position, unlike any time before. Right now, there are 3 reasons why we should be or Big Mom should be concerned if she understood what we, the readers, understand, which is that 1, you have the Tsumatsu Bako box, which is going to explode, we figure. 2, we have Big Mom's sickness, which seems to be induced by her craving sweets, and in this state, she attacks her own subordinates. 3, we have this portrait, which when ripped or touched or destroyed in any way, essentially freaks Big Mom out and lowers her guard and makes her unlike beforehand where she was indestructible, it makes her vulnerable. And so regardless of which of these actually ends up being the final straw that brings Big Mom to her knees, I do believe at some point during the Tea Party, Big Mom will be extremely nerfed, because I just don't feel like there's anyone who could really deal with her at full strength. And so if that was the case, then perhaps the Underworld Brokers would see their chance to finally take down the tyrant of the New World, the queen of the pirate world, Big Mom. So essentially here I'm implying that Capone will eventually ally with, as well as the Vinsmokes. Keep in mind that the Morgans also have a very strong connection with the Vinsmoke, and undoubtedly this connection might be strong enough to make them even more likely to turn on Big Mom, that all of them will join forces against the Big Mom pirates. But guys, even though here I suggest that the Straw Hats' current alliance with Capone might in some way entangle them as allies with the Underworld Brokers, I by no stretch of the imagination view them as typical allies. Just by reading their epithets, you can tell that these are some bad dudes. They are bad people, which it comes back to just a really fascinating aspect of this arc, which is I'm not sure that the Big Mom pirates are the enemies in the end of the day. Because Capone, he is not a good person in any way. Capone literally has zero redeeming qualities aside from the fact that our current enemy is his current enemy. The same thing applies to the Vinsmoke. Revujo has some redeeming qualities. You can maybe speculate that the kids could have been halfway decent if they weren't programmed otherwise. But Judge is straight up bad. He's bad. And then the same would be applied to the Underworld Brokers. So essentially the Strats would be making an alliance with a bunch of people that they really should be, like, knocking out. These are the kinds of people that they normally take out and are normally bosses in the arc. Whereas Big Mom is also deranged in her own way, but she does have some redeeming qualities, which I think is interesting, and still why I cling on to the belief or the hope that this arc is going to become very complex very soon. But anyway, the point of me saying all of this is there's also the possibility that the Brokers, the Underworld members, end up in some way fighting the Straw Hats. And this is where I want to bring up a very interesting point, and I don't know if this is significant or not, but it very well may be, which is that we were first introduced to the Underworld Brokers during the Punk Hazard arc. But many of the characters that we saw there are not the characters that we are seeing at Big Mom's Tea Party, which may imply that there are other brokers out there who are not attending or were not invited that may be of equal importance to the ones that were invited. What essentially I'm suggesting here is that this may be an arc which may unravel the Underworld, at least in large part. The Straw Hats have already taken out Doflamingo. I feel like that was a huge cog within the Underworld. And then if you take out all of these people as well all at once, or if you help doing that, then you may very well earn a target on your back from the remaining members of the Underworld. Just some food for thought. But anyway, guys, that's all I really had to say today. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you agree with anything that I said or if you disagree and why. Share your thoughts. Like the video if you like the video. Dislike the video if you dislike the video. Subscribe if you want to be notified for my future content. And as always, guys, have a wonderful day.